Venice City on the water, a place of beauty and romance that attracts millions of visitors every year, just a few steps from the well-trodden tourist routes. There's a very different Venice, one populated by fascinating creatures. This film explores a Venice that few people ever seen, a city that has a surprising double life. It's one of the largest wetlands in the Mediterranean. Flamingos arrived at these Venetian waters quite recently. They crisscrossed the Mediterranean from North Africa to France's Camargue, to Sardinia, Tuscany, and now Venice. They feed on vegetable matter and small creatures they find in the mud of the degree. In the shadow of Venice, the lagoon is the northernmost flamingo habitat in Europe. They're here now, but in a few weeks many will move off again to find richer pickings. Their takeoff may look clumsy, but once in the air, their flight is poetic and elegant. And before too long, they'll return to the safety of this lagoon, tucked between the sea, the city, and the Alps. The distant peaks helped form the lagoon. The mountain streams washed their rocky sediment towards the sea. To make this habitat, some of the lagoons, other birds are ready to leave, done in small waders. Fed well in the rich mud, they rest on the wooden piles that support the whole of Venice. It's springtime to head off to their northern breeding grounds. But the cormorants won't be lonely this summer as the dunnage fly away. Other birds are flocking, and a bird's eye view reveals the full beauty of the lagoon, with a labyrinth of uninhabited islands, intertwined canals, and swampy sandbanks. These marshy wetlands are known as the Bahraini to survive. Here plants need to like salt water and flooding. Natural artery is called Gaby May, under through the brackish gardens. Keeping the lagoon alive, the same waters flow through the city. The curving streams between the islands became the magical canals of Venice. This is the city of bridges. Visitors are mesmerized by the romance of the canals and the ancient architecture, and often miss a smaller. While the science around them, these mussels are true Venetian natives. And now, in spring, they're breeding the male's spawn into the water, and each female produces up to 10 million. Earth's most of the larvae are eaten by other inhabitants of the canals, but up to 10,000 young shellfish will survive just beyond the city colonies of birds of reading. But a hazard in urban nesting is constant disturbance. Little terns will quickly fly back to their eggs and can miraculously find their own nests, crepes in the crowded colony. Their cousins, the sandwich terns, lay their eggs directly onto the sand. If the terns are disturbed, they had little time for incubating their eggs. The sand will keep them warm for long and left out in the open. They could be an easy target for predators. Foxes are the biggest predators hereabouts. But from the air, he's easy to spot. The birds make it known. He's not welcome anywhere near their nests. Foxies would rather not get their feet wet. Hunting in these swampy areas is a frustrating business. The grand leap disturbed another nesting bird. Now it's a question of following the scent. A welcome snack just beyond the sand dunes is the busy colony in this mixed neighborhood. A pied avocet is brooding next to the sandwich terns. With nests so closely packed, there can be conflicting territorial claims with the common terms, but the avocet stands his ground. The Grand Canal is the main waterway of Venice, dividing the city. Into it follows the course of the ancient river Brenta that runs from the Alps all the way to the lagoon. It offers a journey through architectural history starting in the 13th century. The banks of the Grand Canal have other surprises to offer, like Palazzo Molli. Pierrot's rose garden nestled between the buildings is a hidden paradise. Now owned by a modern-day countess, it has been restored to its full glory. And no detail has been left to chance with the luxury of space in a city whose every square centimeter is exploited for maximum profit. It's also a century too many small animals. Every day, more than 50,000 tourists visit Venice when the sun begins to set the city's waterways empty. Venice belongs to the wild Venetians. Rats prefer to search for food in the cool night air. But they're not alone. Pine martens are hungry too, and rats are on their menu. Pine martens are welcome in the city as they're natural rat catchers, agile with a keen sense of smell. They can find and follow any rat. But they're endangered. Since the rat population boomed ironically, many martens have been killed by rat poisoning. The rat won the day, and the pine marten has to settle for dessert. Not such a sacrifice, as pine martens are omnivores, both meat and veg on their menu. And sometimes the vegetarian meal is an easier option as the rat prepares to sleep. The city of Venice is beginning to wake up. The floating vegetable stones are the first to move into action. Soon these silent waterways will become busy highways again. In the 18th century, over 8,000 gondolas navigated the Venice canals. Now there are only about 400 left. Life in Venice may be moving with the times, but one thing never changes. It dictates the daily rhythms of the city and the lagoon twice a day. The tide rises and falls as seawater washes in and out of the lagoon. The water level changes by up to 60 centimeters smooth. Lakes disappear into swampy wetlands, only to return hours later. Retreating water levels reveal a surprise strange islands that look like complicated water mazes. In fact, they're fisheries at the edge of the lagoon known as the Valle de Pesca. They'd be worked by the same families for generations using a simple but ingenious method. Nets are lowered into the locks that span the water channels in the springtime. The locks bar the way to the young fish that stream into the lagoon to feed the fishermen, raise the nets and catch the small swarming fish in their thousands. It's easy to scoop them out. But these fish are not for eating. The fishermen place them on the other side of the bars and so trap them in the channels. Here the spring fish are held under perfect conditions until they grow big enough to harvest in the autumn, when the fish try to return to the scene. They're simply netted again. This time they don't get away. Kingfishers have a more dramatic technique. They catch up to 20 fish a day, but need even more if they have nests with hungry growing chicks. It takes enormous skill, but also violence. A sharp blow to the head stuns the fish, and when it stops wiggling, the kingfisher can turn it round, without fear of it escaping the scales. And fins of the fish need to be in line. Now it's ready to swallow these shallow, brackish waters. At the edge of the lagoon are perfect hunting grounds for a kingfisher. But not every dive is successful. They'll snatch the odd insect in the air, but 95% of the kingfisher's catch must be made underwater. The cormorant has an easier life, as does the little egret, and some don't even get their feathers wet while hunting. There are plenty of fish in the lagoon, but they're not only found in the wetlands. These waters flow through the city, and there are fish to be caught in the canals beneath the bustling jetties of the famous Vaporetto Zoar water taxis. Wildlife flourishes even here. The little egret can fish where the water is deeper and turbulent. It's not easy to keep an eye on a moving target from a moving base, but persistence and patience pay off. 3 narrow inlets connect the lagoon to the sea. They're known as bulki, the Italian word for mouth. In spring, the fish travel into the lagoon because it's shallow, warm, and full of food. And in the autumn, they travel back out to the Adriatic Sea. The lagoon's fishermen understand the rhythms of the sea. But there was one phenomenon that remained a mystery for many years. When they cast their nets into the rich fishing grounds, they were torn to shreds. The fishermen believed that water spirits were grabbing their nets and named the area that anyway, or hold fast.